in addition to all of that, of course, the science today shows that fluoridation is A, not effective, largely because it works on the outside of the tooth. It's topical. You don't want to swallow it. It makes as much sense to swallow fluoride as it would to swallow sunblock, because sunblock also works on the outside of the tooth, of the body, not from the inside of the body. And secondly, the evidence is mounting, serious evidence mounting that fluoride, even at the levels in water fluoridation, is dangerous to health. There are many health effects that we're concerned about. They've been documented recently in the National Research Council report from 2006, which was well summarized by the Scientific American article in January of this year, 2008. So there's plenty of science that says there are dangers here, and there's plenty of science that says it doesn't work, and it doesn't work in the way you thought it would. But I'm afraid that the people that continue to promote this, the Oral Health Division of the Center for Disease Control, largely dental trained, and the American Dental Association, and the toothpaste manufacturers are so wedded to this policy, they don't have what it takes to admit that it's wrong and that it should be stopped.
Well, even I went to Walmart and bought a tube of AIM toothpaste, and right on the box it says, keep out of the reach of children under 6 years of age. If more than used for brushing is accidentally swallowed, get medical help or contact the Poison Control Center right away. And then it goes on to say that children under 2 years of age, ask a dentist or physician. Actually, the proof is right on the box, and people go right on using it totally unaware because they've just been psychologically indoctrinated to accept this travesty. Isn't that true?
Absolutely, and as far as the indoctrination is concerned, in the 1950s, they had one of the best indoctrinators that's ever walked on the face of the earth. Now, none other than Edward Bernays, the father of public relations and propaganda. He was brilliant. He promoted smoking amongst women by marching suffragettes up Fifth Avenue smoking cigarettes to demonstrate that this is freedom at last, freedom, we're free at last. Incredible. It's absolutely absurd, and you're right, on the back of any tube of fluoridated toothpaste in the United States, you'll see this warning. Only use a pea-sized amount, and if you swallow more than that, contact a poison center. Well, a pea-sized amount of fluoride in toothpaste is equivalent to 2 glasses of water. So maybe we need that warning on the tap in our houses. Do not drink, if your child drinks more than 2 glasses of water, then contact a poison center. I mean, the whole thing is so utterly ludicrous. It tells you there's something wrong with the educational system, that we have millions of doctors and dentists and ordinary citizens walking around thinking this is the best thing since sliced bread, when in actual reality it's the most foolish practice that we've ever taken.
And right here on this box of AIM, it says use a pea-sized piece of toothpaste, but then the picture's got it going all the way across the toothbrush and back across it again.
It's like candy, isn't it? And then they haven't, talk about split personality. They've had on the one hand, don't swallow more than a pea-sized amount. Then they put these lavish, make it look like ice cream, and they flavor it with a strawberry flavor, chewing gum flavor. If that's not an invitation for the kid to swallow it, and we know from the studies that a kid brushing his or her teeth twice a day with fluoridated toothpaste has a greater risk of getting dental fluorosis than one who brushes their teeth just once a day, because kids don't have a good control of their swallowing reflex. They tend to swallow. It's very difficult for them not to do so. So, there's so much irresponsibility in this. And talking about dental fluorosis. Dental fluorosis is a discoloration, mottling of the teeth. It's caused by fluoride. That is not argued. Everybody knows that fluoride causes dental fluorosis. And when they started this program in 1945, they thought they could limit the number of kids with this ailment to 10%. And it's very mild form, and as they said, hardly noticeable. But today, the Center for Disease Control has conceded that 32% of American kids now have dental fluorosis, and they don't have it just in its very mild form. They have it in its mild form and its moderate form. And in the moderate form, 100% of the tooth surface is affected, it's discolored, and it's indented. And so our kids are being overexposed to fluoride today, not underexposed, and the simplest way to reduce the amount of exposure for our kids is to stop water fluoridation, period.
Sir, I was reading last night that fluoride is one of the basic ingredients in both Prozac, which of course is one of the most popular antidepressants of all time, and sarin nerve gas. Is that correct?
It is correct, but it's misleading, if I may say so. Certainly with the sarin gas. In these two substances you're talking about, they're what we call organic molecules, synthesized compounds, in which the fluorine is attached with a covalent bond. And it's quite different. The chemistry of a fluorine-carbon bond is quite different from a fluoride ion. However, the point is sound in as much as when we see the side effects of things like Prozac, which are serious, we have to know whether in fact the side effect is caused by the whole molecule with the carbon and fluorine bond intact, or whether it's come about as the molecule gets metabolized in the body. Does it at that point release free fluoride ion in the brain, say, and then cause, and the effects that we're looking at are free, the effects of free fluoride ion, or is it the parent molecule? Now, I suspect for most of the fluorinated drugs that we use, and we use a lot, the fluorine is not removed during metabolism because the drug companies put that fluorine in at the point of susceptibility. They're trying to block the metabolism of the drug and to make it last longer. So logically, you would expect the fluorine to still be attached to the molecule when you excrete it in the urine. But this needs to be demonstrated for every fluorinated drug. The drug companies should be able to demonstrate that all the fluorine is still attached to metabolite. And I know that sounds like a mouthful, but there is, to go back to the beginning, there is a big chemical difference between a carbon-fluorine bond, which is very stable, and a fluoride ion, which has its own unique properties, which are actually very devastating for biology. And in fact, when I first got, my wife persuaded me to get involved with this issue 12 years ago. And I didn't want to because at that point, like many other people, I'd been brainwashed into thinking that opponents of fluoridation were a bunch of nutcases. Flat Earth Society, you know. And I must apologize because I hadn't started to read the literature very long before I realized that was not the case. But what I thought going into it was that the poor anti-fluoridationists confused the fluoride ion with the fluoride atom. In other words, the element fluorine with the compound fluoride. That would be like comparing common salt, which we know is relatively harmless, with chlorine gas, which we know kills people. And so that's what I thought the confusion was. And my shock was, number one, they hadn't made that confusion. And number two, the fluoride ion is extremely active biologically, and it's quite, all the health effects that we're talking about are extremely plausible from a biological perspective.
Also, I was reading last night that Major George R. Jordan of the United States Air Force during the 1950s testified before Congress that in his post as a U.S.-Soviet liaison officer, that the Soviets openly admitted to, and I quote, using fluoride in the water supplies in their concentration camps to both make the prisoners stupid, docile, and subservient. And of course, I've also heard this about the Nazis under I.G. Farben. Could you comment on this, please, sir?
Yeah, personally, I wouldn't go there. If you remember, they were able to perpetuate fluoridation